We're going to talk about data-driven DevOps, and I want to start with a very sad story. And it's a story of cobbler children that have no shoes, and I obviously talk about software engineers. You all know that the state of software is horrible. That's a Venn diagram. Think about it for a second. Nod if you agree. The more you know some technology, the more horrible it looks. Yeah, and also we suck in any measurement of our job, usually because every software is 80% ready 80% of the time. You know, on stand-ups, how are you doing? Almost ready, right? Most of the time, obviously, and I mean, this is our lives, but it's basically fine. The problem with this stuff is that we know it's fine, but the world out there, not so much. And then we have different departments in our organization that do measurement, and you know, sales have their own system that they measure. That's the easiest measurement, is sales. But also marketing, they have leads and funnels and stuff. Support, they have their metrics, open versus closed tickets, time to resolve, and sentiment analysis and what's not. Finance, they have their own systems. I have no idea, but probably they measure. Even HR, right? They have stuff that they can measure how successful their efforts are. The only department that don't have any measurement is the engineering. What we have are anecdotes and a daily stand-up, and they are more or less, everything is 80% ready 80% of the time. Now, the problem with it, not that we really have no idea what's going on, is that it's very hard to collaborate over anecdotes from daily stand-ups. So every other departments, they collaborate, they fight. Sales tells to marketing, you don't give us enough leads. Marketing goes like, oh, look at our dashboard, it's a lot of leads, you don't know how to convert. They have numbers to fight on. And we just sit aside and chew glue, basically. So let me tell you why we need this to change. There is no sound. No, I have it from my computer. Okay, there are subtitles. That's fine. That's what we want to achieve. We want to be able to hurt other people's feelings without taking any responsibility. We need numbers for that. We need to say, this is what we did well, you sucked at your job, now it's your problem. My name is Baruch, and I'm Chief Sticker Officer at JFrog, so obviously I have stickers. If you're into stickers, talk to me. I also head of developer advocacy at JFrog. The entire purpose of this slide is to show how cool our stickers are, because that's a sticker. Where's my, here. That's a sticker, and also to have my Twitter handle, because by now you know how entertaining I am. You should follow me right now. If you're still not convinced, not to worry. My Twitter handle is on the bottom of every slide, so you still have chances. Okay, the most important slide of all this talk is this one. I prepared a special page for you. You go to jeffrog.com/show-notes, you will see DevOpsDays Charlotte there, you click on it, and you will get, the slides are already there, the video that I'm recording, hopefully, I'm going to upload it right after, so you will have the video tonight. All the links are there, and comments and place to comment and rate, and also a small raffle to thank you for being here. So go ahead, participate in it, sign it up. If you want to take picture of slides, that's the only one worth it. But again, no worries, the link for the show notes is in every slide as well. Okay, now with that introduction, we all understand why we need metrics, why we need data approach. And this is where you're like, Baruch, you are 5 years too late. You are 5 years too late because everything has been already invented, done, pitched, and solid. Who heard about Accelerate book, State of DevOps report, and everything else? Okay, I'm not late because, okay, so first of all, not only I just paid for you sitting through this talk, I just paid for your entire trips to DevOpsDays Charlotte. because this book has everything you need to know how to measure DevOps in your organization, especially if you don't have a lot of baggage, technical depth, old rigid departments, and all this kind of stuff. Those are the people who bring you the State of DevOps report every year. And State of DevOps report measures DevOps in our industry by 4 key metrics. Lead time, that's how fast we get our software from our head to ready to be deployed. Deployment frequency, how frequent we deploy our software to production. Change fail, when we deploy, how many of those deployments fail. And time to restore. When it fails, how quick we are back. And this book has all the techniques of how to measure it and how to give these numbers, and those numbers are amazing. So here you go, useful right there. The only problem is that sometimes we cannot just start and switch our approach to work in these terms, because we kind of existed pre-DevOps. And we have our stuff, especially we have our metrics. Dev has their velocity and architecture, complexity and compliance stuff. And then Ops, they have their the SLAs, the cost of environment setup, the time to customer call, the tools stability, and etc. And QA has their incidents, defects, mean time to fix, and Julie is here, sorry. And code coverage, and testing stability, and everything else, right? So those metrics already existed, and the question is, now what? The answer is, all those metrics are still valid. They are now just collaborate with each other. And I'll give you one example, and the rest you can see in the slides and afterwards in the show notes. For example, development is very affected by the build time. But sometimes, or the stability of the pipelines. But those are, in a lot of organizations, are still in the hands of the ops team, of the infrastructure team, et cetera, et cetera. So knowing who does what and how it affects other teams is critical even before you can switch to this nice utopia of empowered teams that everybody work together, and actually the team is both in charge for development and for the pipelines. So the first step is talk about the metrics that you already have and understand how they implement each other. And you can go through this entire matrix on the slides later in the show notes and see how they collaborate with each other. I'll give you 3 brief examples of how this collaboration can improve your life. And the first one is, well, we never get enough testing environments from Ops. QA is suffering, someone said at the Scrum team meeting. And then you do 3 simple steps. You gather the data, you look at the environment utilization, yes, everything is super busy, and then you answer the question, why? And it turns out that people don't check them in after they checked it out. So you see, the Resh is fine, Jan is fine, everybody are fine until Baruch, and everybody else should get fired probably. But yeah, that's the answer. And then once you have those numbers, you can implement something very simple. All you need to do is implement auto check-in, and then you can see how it implements. So we measured, and it's great. Another example, tests are failing because test suite is not stable. That's another metric that Ops is in charge of, but QA is suffering. Again, we measure. This is an example of what we did, custom type in Jira. And then we see that, yes, there is a problem. But once we measure and pay attention, we can fix it, and you can see how flat it is after we invented it. Developers want to deploy new garbage collector, tons of work without any profit. That's something that will affect Ops because they need to do it, and the developers want it. Again, we do some testing, and then when we actually put it in production, we can see how the garbage collection time actually flattens after we implemented it. So it's all about measurements, and just a couple of small tips, couple of minutes before I let you off to read, accelerate, and think about your metrics. Measure the right thing. The great example is lines of code. as an engineering metrics, don't do that. It doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. You search under the lights, your results are pointless. Avoid data overload. You might want to start gathering as much data as possible. This is also counterproductive because you will just drown in the data. Use reliable data. I think that's the most important one. If you have data that you are unsure of, it's better still working with your guts instead of blindly relying on your own data. Common vocabulary, that's how the projector, it's great. So you can see the difference here. Think about who decides what severity the tickets are. What is SEF 0, what is SEF 4? It needs to be aligned. Everybody needs to know that we are talking the same language. And of course, metric generate incentives. Be aware of that. This is critical. Because when you start measuring people on stuff, they will change their behavior to get better in some metrics, and sometimes that's not what you actually intended. And of course, tweak as you go. The example that I gave with the QA set stability, once we stabilized it, we can turn our attention to something else. We don't need to start our morning with the same dashboard, even if the information is not there. And the last one is we need to elevate. Looking at the raw data, it's a great start, impossible to continue with. Product-specific dashboards is nice, but still information overload. There are tools like the JFrog Insight, part of the JFrog platform. This is how I pay for being here. Done. You need to look. You might look at those teams for those products for a little bit. So with that, let's get this fixed. Let's start working with reliable data, and then we remove the blame game. It's not us now, it's the numbers. We build accountability and trust because we can always back up what we're saying, and it creates common base for discussion, and this is what actually enables DevOps for all of us. With that, thank you very much. Now you can follow me on Twitter. This is DevOps Days, and that's the hashtag for this talk, Data-Driven DevOps. And don't forget the show notes. You have much more information there that I managed to squeeze into my 12 minutes. And with that, thank you.